Hey folks, welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. You know who needs Off the Record? This guy. I got popped in Northern California last week for allegedly speeding. It was allegedly, of course, because it's bullshit if you ask me. I wasn't speeding. I was obeying the letter of the law. And you know who's going to prove it? Off the Record. I sent my ticket over to them. It was so easy. I just went to offtherecord.com/TST. You can also download the Off the Record app and use code TST10. Scanned my ticket, uploaded it, copied some information from the ticket, the date that the court date is, the type of violation, the court that they want me to appear in. Copied that in to make sure it went right and paid a small retainer fee Off the Record. Boom, they assigned me with an attorney. That attorney also wrote me an email just now to confirm some of the information I put on there, and they're taking care of it. I don't have to do anything else. And Off the Record estimated my success rate in getting those points off my record at 93%. So I will keep you guys posted how that goes. But other people have had the same exact experience. They hit me up all the time saying Off the Record saved their backsides. So don't plead guilty to a ticket ever. Don't just pay the fine and hope it goes away. It won't. That insurance surcharge, those court costs, they'll follow you around for a while. And that stuff can snowball and really mess up your life. So, offtherecord.com/TST or code TST10 on the Off the Record app. Do it if you get a ticket and you will be good to go. All right, folks, on this show, very special guest phoning in from Portugal, where he lives. It's the chairman of Zenvo Automotive, the Danish hypercar maker, Jens Sverdup. This guy has been around the world, literally, has worked for almost all of the major boutique hypercar manufacturers. He is one of the most experienced executives in the space that you will ever hear from. He has some amazing stories about working at Koenigsegg and Czinger, Rimac, and now is here with his new babies at Zenvo, the Aurora product line. Jens Sverdup is calling in to the Smoking Tire Podcast. All right. Well, we are live. So very much my pleasure today to welcome from Zenvo, Mr. Jens Sverdup. Thank you for joining me. Where are you actually calling from?
Thank you for having me. I'm actually at home in Portugal. So this is my home base, and the factory is in Denmark. But this is where I try to stay most of my time.
Oh, so you have a real commute.
Yeah. It's not so bad. It's like 3.5 hours on the plane, so it's okay. I don't do it every day.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. It's a pleasure to have you. We met very briefly at the Quail, and I have some friends who spoke very highly of you and said we have to talk to you on the show about what's happening at Zenvo. It's very interesting stuff, and so it's definitely our pleasure. So. Let's get to a little bit of a background first.
Well, I mean, where do I start? You know, I've been involved in cars since as long as I can remember, and I guess I'm one of the pioneers, if you will, in the hypercar business. So I think we actually met quite a few years ago when I was head of sales at Koenigsegg.
So, yes, when I came to Engelholm.
Exactly, with JF and some other guys. So
that was a fun visit. I got to drive a Gera RS on the runway. That was quite nice.
Yeah, you know, I remember that. Yeah, we tested the traction control, stability control. I seem to remember. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time. That thing was cool.
Yeah. So where do I start? I mean, I sort of. My life took two directions in a way. I was supposed to be a professional musician, you know, and have cars as a hobby. And I think at some stage, basically, I've been into cars my whole life. My father collects cars, and so it's been as long as I can remember. So And I had it as a hobby for quite a time, where I restored all Alphas, eventually all Ferraris when I could afford them. They were a lot cheaper back then than they are now. Until I guess the music industry, wasn't always that much fun. You had to do a lot of stuff I didn't really like to do. I played a lot of music I didn't like, and I sort of thought, okay, let's try to focus on cars. So I actually started out doing like classics, I would say, race cars, classics, in particular, classic supercars, Italian cars. And I guess at some stage back in the early 2000s, I just got this idea that I really wanted to work with new cars. So I sold my business, moved to Sweden, became a GM of a Ferrari dealership. We took on Pagani for the Nordic countries, which I was really, really into. And eventually also ended up running a Lamborghini dealership. So I sort of come from the dealer side of things. And I guess it's fair to say this would have been back in 2004 or 5, so early days with Pagani. And
that's early Pagani, yeah. Wow. That's like C12 Pagani. That's really early.
Yeah. So it was early. It was a tiny little company, and I was really fascinated, about what they were doing, basically. The craftsmanship, just taking things a little bit more extreme than dare I say it, the everyday Ferrari and Lamborghini stuff I was dealing with. I was sort of longing for something more extreme, I would say. And I was really aware of Koenigsegg at the time. I had a friend that had invested in the company, and that was sort of like a courtship that went on for a couple of years, whether I should come on board there or not. Eventually I did. I think I met Christian. and literally decided in 10 seconds that this guy is pretty special.
He tends to do that to people. You could sit there. I could listen to Christian talk about engineering for hours and hours and hours and hours. And
this kid's
so
going
much
somewhere.
passion. And
Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's what I felt, that this guy is definitely special, and
sure.
And he really just won me over, and I believed in his vision and everything. So that's how I ended up, sort of on the factory. And then I did that for a few years. Launched the 1.1 Agera RS, those cars, and was very lucky to see the brand break through, which was a great experience, to see literally a brand that was fighting for survival. And then, by the time I left, we had broken through. So
what was it about Koenigsegg that really, that was the thing that took it from, that brought it to such mainstream? It's not, the cars are $3 million, so it's not mainstream, but you know what I mean? Like, what was the breakthrough at Koenigsegg?
Quite a few things. I think it was something we actively did. I sort of came on board and saw that the brand was a little bit misunderstood. Even in Sweden, people didn't really know what we were doing. Everything was so secret, and I heard from several people that it was like a tubular frame, hot rod sort of. So people didn't know what it was. So I guess education was a big deal. So just to start telling the world what we were doing, letting people in behind the ropes, showing them that we're car enthusiasts, and then some other boring sales related things like taking care of the pre-owned market, because at the time CCXs weren't doing very good. They were plummeting in value, and of course it was in the way of new car sales.
Sure.
And I think thirdly, we really started pushing to, which is one of my big things in life, is to listen to customers. As simple as it sounds, it is actually very hard sometimes. But literally just, listen to people, give them somewhat what they want, just take some criticism and try to sort of adapt the product to where it's still your own product, your own dream, right? But you sort of meet people halfway a little bit,
Sure.
Which is something I would say the Regera is a good example of, because we had customers that wanted something less visceral and raw, So
Oh,
Yeah,
so
so I
they
think
wanted something that they could actually like just sort of use as a car.
Yeah, something more. Yeah, I mean, more towards, let's say, Bugatti, I guess.
Right.
So introducing the Regera was definitely something I was really passionate about, because I felt we were missing out of 50% of the market. We only had the hardcore engineering, car guys. But then sort of we got some of those more like lifestyle luxury clients with the Regera. So
Right.
and yeah, I mean, credit should go where credit is due. We have a good friend in common called JF Musial, and you were on.
I was gonna say.
You were
I was
on,
gonna say.
yeah,
JF
yeah.
has did the hypercar documentary for Netflix and a lot of behind the scenes factory stuff with Christian, and a lot of people watch those videos.
It really helped actually, and I already knew it when we were starting that this information was lacking, and that people needed to see how nice of a guy Christian is, right?
Yeah.
Like how easy it is to connect with him. So I think JF he got it basically. He came over, visited, and he really sort of connected with everything that was going on, and it was really fascinated. And I think his passion helped a lot. He could communicate with Christian. We could get the message out. So we saw during that couple of years where this Inside Koenigsegg series was going on, and the other things, the documentary Apex, and we really saw an upswing from the US, of course.
Sure.
Which eventually just led to this, pressure cooker effect where it just exploded in 2015. We had so many orders, during one day, we didn't know what to do, basically.
Was that literally like the day the documentary came out? You got like that many orders?
Geneva show.
Oh, the Geneva show. When you had what, a Gera RS and Regera on the stage together?
Yeah. It literally exploded. I couldn't believe it. I would get WhatsApp messages coming in with people ordering cars, and that normally before that we had to fight for it, right? We really had to convince people, and but I guess it's
interesting.
I mean,
there's other companies that I speak to, today who are sort of in the space where they talk about, and they have amazing product and they have good people behind it, but they talk about having to make every sale, and they haven't gotten to that place yet where the snowball gets big enough that it's a product that is just in demand on its own,
Yeah, it's a critical mass, because when you have customers doing the sales for you, that's when the snowball starts rolling.
Right, right.
And I guess just by the nature of being around, surviving for 20 years, because you just have to assume that there's a lot of cool cars out there, right? A lot of small brands. If you're 3 to 5 years old, people, no matter how much they love the car, they'll be really skeptical parting ways with their money. Mm-hmm. I think to some effect, once you've survived for 20 years through thick and thin, and, you've sort of proven something. I guess that was also a big part of it, just showing that resilience.
Well, they're confident that there's going to be some kind of support for their car, in the long run. It's not just going to be, if you buy a car for millions of dollars and the company goes away, what do you do?
No, that's that's sort of that's a sort of a problem or a challenge I've met through my whole automotive life, I would have to say. So I was also involved in Rimac in the startup years. So I went, from Koenigsegg over there. It's a similar thing, and then Porsche invests and everything, then the trust is there, right?
Right.
Because there's some third party just goes out and say, this is safe. Your money is safe.
Totally. We saw the same thing with watches, right? When in about 2015, everybody started caring about, it's an in-house movement this, in-house movement that. Everybody cared, but a lot of the companies couldn't couldn't sustain the engineering of that, and these movements were unreliable, the company would go out of business. And this watch you spent $80,000 or $90,000 on, all of a sudden,
What do you do?
Literally a brick. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
No one cares about in-house
I guess
movements anymore.
no, give us something that works.
Yeah,
I care.
I care
But,
sometimes too, but I care more.
yeah.
But I, you know, to the point, I care more about if I am going to buy an in-house movement from a fancy watch company, I want to be sure that company is stable. You know, like,
it needs to work. Yeah,
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
it's the same thing. Trust is a big deal, and okay, if you're a billionaire or whatever, like a wealthy car buyer, of course, you can afford to lose a deposit. Sure, it's not that, but it's I guess it's the Lussell phase.
yeah, the pride.
Making a bad
Yeah.
business decision.
Yeah.
Having to answer to
prideful
your friend.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you,
Yeah.
you talked about, going from Koenigsegg to Rimac and now to Zenvo. Did you see those companies as being in a place where you saw Koenigsegg at the time you went over there and you went, I can be part of the wave that happens here?
Yes, actually, I did also Czinger, the 21C, which from LA. So I actually, did that car too.
Is that thing real?
Yeah,
I mean, we saw it at Goodwood, but like, have they sold a car yet? Are people actually? I mean, it looks crazy, and the technology's interesting, but like, is that a real thing people can buy right now?
Yeah, you can. The first customer deliveries will start later this year. So, which is pretty amazing. We I think we started the company. I say we. I'm no longer there, but I'm really good friends with Kevin still, and of course, we started the companies in 2020. So 3 years later, you have a delivery. I'd say that's pretty good going. So yeah.
Kevin came on our show in like 2015, maybe. And when
during
it was
the COVID lockdown,
No, 15. Well before that. When it was a Divergent 3D.
The Blade. The Blade.
And he came on the show, and we said he did the show and he left, and Zach and I looked at each other and went, "This guy is either a genius or is completely out of his mind," and we couldn't really tell which. I think he might be a genius.
Definitely a genius.
I think he's a genius.
Definitely a genius.
I think so. Yeah,
I'd say he's definitely up there. He's definitely one of the smartest guys I've ever met. For sure. So also
the car is really. We saw the car at the stand at Goodwood. It was nuts.
Yeah. No. The car performs. And it has done for quite some time. So I'd say that's a very real car. You can buy it. People have bought it. I'm sure there's quite a few customers in the LA area, so you'll see some cars in traffic.
They're probably. This is where people buy those things. So, hey, Kevin, get back at us, buddy. What year is that post from?
2020.
It was 2020. Wow, time has really gone by. Wow, it's felt like a longer time ago than that. But okay. Kevin, get back at us. I want to drive that thing.
I can. If you don't have his contact, so I'm happy to reintroduce you.
Please do.
So you should.
So you really have
that car
I should. You really have you've been around the world of like every boutique hypercar manufacturer. It's unbelievable.
The ones that have something unique, where I feel that there's something genuine and it has all the ingredients in place to make a good soup.
Yeah. Were you ever? And I don't want to ask you to throw shade at anybody, but in the last 5 years, let's say, we watched the rise and then the disappearance of numerous small boutique startup hypercar companies. Yeah. Right? Were you ever courted by any of those, and then you turned them down because you went, I don't think this will last, or you were just already involved?
All the time, So I still every week. So
is there any consistent thing that you notice when someone approaches you? Like, how do you smell out what won't exist in 20 years, like Koenigsegg? Or or even Zenvo was started in '09. So like, how do you have such a good nose for
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things?
it's 07 even.
Oh, 07,
Well, you
sorry.
need something genuine. You need something genuine, like a strong flavor. If it's nobody buys a hypercar that's vanilla, right? And for a while, it was just an onslaught of EV hypercar startups. It still is. I'm sure in
Yeah.
the Balkans, in the neighboring countries of Rimac, there's probably like 50 hypercar EV brands. You just
Sure.
haven't heard about them. In Bulgaria has one, like everywhere, because it became sort of easy in a way, because you can take an electric motor off the shelf and all these things.
Yeah.
You don't need to build your own ICE anymore, which is super complex. So I mean, a lot of big egos. I hope I'm not. Yeah.
No, I mean
don't
that's
wanna,
the least surprising thing we've heard from you. Is there's a lot of big egos in the hypercar space.
Yeah.
Probably could have called
Yeah.
that one. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So and that I don't feel that's genuine. You sort of need to. So you have to make a product for a customer, for some people. So wherever I see that, it's just like someone's big ego and he's been let down by some brand that wants to make his own car. Of course,
That's
Yeah,
we've seen that before. Yeah, the one it's the Ferruccio Lamborghini story, but that story has been told,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, it worked for him. But it was a different time.
Sure.
He couldn't do a render like back
Yeah.
then. Like
Right,
that's
right.
what people are. That's what people are doing now. So it's like I can show you my LinkedIn inbox. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Every week, there's someone who wants to pitch me some new hypercar, electric, normally 5,000-6,000 horsepower, and there's like a crazy render, right? So that's
5,000-6,000 horsepower.
Oh, right. Oh, there's
there's the
Yeah, there we
Bulgarian
go.
car.
Quite a render.
That literally just looks like they took close-up shots of a dozen different cars and moved them around. I mean, I see Lamborghini in that thing. I see Koenigsegg. I see a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So these, I guess these. This car I've seen before, so it wasn't even the one I was aiming at. So this, I think these guys at least have a factory, right?
Oh, they
have
do?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's this thing
do.
called,
I don't know.
Zach?
The
The
Alieno or
Alieno Unum with 24 electric motors. All right,
Wow.
cool.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these things, but you need something, as if like it's the same with everything you do. If it's music, if it's art, you just need your own voice.
Sure.
And you need to be a little bit humble and actually provide customers with sort of what they're asking for a little bit,
Okay.
while still retaining your flavor.
Well,
in a way.
in that regard, tell me about Zenvo. What is the Zenvo flavor? Folks, we got to take a quick break from the action for NASCAR. This episode of The Smoking Tire is brought to you by NASCAR, and the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are coming down to the wire, and this weekend we're headed to the ROVAL at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We all know and love the iconic mile-and-a-half oval, but this is the playoffs, and that means NASCAR is pulling out all the stops. In the month of October, the track is transformed into a 2.25-mile road course with 17 turns, combining the iconic high banks of the oval with an infield road course to create the perfect storm for exciting playoffs racing. Did we mention it's an elimination race? This incredibly talented field of 12 drivers will be cut to 8 when the dust settles. Who has what it takes to survive and advance to the next round of the playoffs? So invite your friends and family over for a day of epic NASCAR playoff racing. You won't regret it. Tune in to watch the NASCAR Series Cup Playoffs Elimination Race presented by Xfinity at the Charlotte ROVAL Sunday, October 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern. And we're also brought to you today by Game Time. I was just on this very show talking about how annoying getting to the Rose Bowl was, getting in and out of that stadium. But you know what wasn't annoying? getting the tickets. Game time is here, and you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Whether it's sporting event, a concert, comedy, theater, or whatever near you, Game Time is here. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, the view from your seat, imagery, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. We got concerts and sports happening all fall in LA, and with the flash deals and the zone deals, it's easy to find and buy tickets for any kind of event you want to check it out. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase, because you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. The all-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees, and you can buy tickets in just seconds with 2 taps, right? Game Time has deals on tickets right up until the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code SMOKINGTIRE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SMOKINGTIRE, SMOKINGTIRE, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, back to the show.
Well, I mean, so I came on board 2 years ago to launch, what you probably noticed at the Quail, right, which is the Aurora. So that's sort of my car and sort of a vision that I've architected, you could say. So that is very close to my heart. But
it's a very cool car. It's very pretty. We saw it at the Quail. It has some amazing details. Yeah. The gauge cluster, you have won the gauge cluster war. The gauge cluster is actually the best gauge cluster that I've ever seen. It is the coolest thing.
Oh, this is the one that rotates.
Rotating circles.
This is the best gauge
cluster. It is the best
the
gauge cluster ever. It's the gauge. Can you just real quick? We'll talk about the rest of the car, but give me 30 seconds on the gauge cluster because it's amazing.
Well, I mean, that is actually Christian Brandt's idea, our head of design. So first of all, I do not like screens, so that's where the discussion started. So like one thing I knew, I wanted analog instruments. So where do we put all the stuff that we sort of need sometimes, like Apple CarPlay and sat nav and all these menus and everything. So he actually came up with it. Why don't we just make them flip around? Because we were playing with all sorts of head-up displays and pop-up screens and doing everything, but it's like too complicated. So that came about just like, how do we meet this sort of requirement from a less is more approach? How little can we get away with? So what's simpler than just using both sides of the cluster, right?
No, we've got a little video up on the screen that shows how they work. And so there's 3 circular gauges, and the back of it is actually, it's clear. So you can see in between them, and then they flip around, and they're analog on one side and they're digital on the other side. So you can flip them if you need the screen for the controls, and then you can flip them back and have a real gauge.
So good.
It's like it's real watch enthusiast stuff. Like you have to love.
It definitely comes. Yeah, it comes from there.
It reminds me of the Bentley screen. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
No, the Bentley center screen that rotates around. It's got a little James Bond vibe.
Yeah.
This is the better version of that.
More compact version,
Yeah. So we were actually inspired by watches. So I'd say up on our mood board, like skeleton watches,
right?
Because we wanted to, when it comes to the whole design of this car, is like what can we get away with not putting on there? What's the point of putting like a cover over a part to cover it up because it's ugly engineering? So we've actually taken away things on these cars. So that's why you see all this use of negative space. You see all these open areas. The instrument cluster is a good example of that, and it is inspired by motorcycles, by by mechanical watches because we want to show off the engineering too, and it's good for cooling. I mean, taking away stuff is great.
Of course, but it's such an interesting philosophy.
Very negative spiral.
Yeah, like if you have beautiful engineering, people do want to see it. I just got to drive the BAC Mono for the first time, which I'm sure is a product you're familiar with.
Very,
And you
I've
can see everything.
Too.
Oh, you did? You worked at BAC? Of course you did.
I was an advisor for them for a while. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite cars. One of my favorite cars of all time. It's so fun to drive.
It's insane.
And it's beautiful still. 10 years after, it still looks very modern. So really good design on it.
But you can see the engineering was the point. You can see all the control arms working. You can see everything moving, and that's what I like about a skeletonized watch as well. Is I can actually see everything going on in there. And with this car, with your car, the inboard suspension is on display. You can see it from the outside of the car. It's so cool.
Yeah. Because what we do is we send all the air through the car, right? So it's open from front to back. So we have all these open spaces. So that's definitely we can put what you see on the side of the car, the carbon, it's actually the monocoque.
Yeah.
There's no carbon cover over it. So we're using the monocoque itself as part of the car's body, if you will. So, very minimalistic, and I would say typical Scandinavian Danish approach. It's less is more. Like you have to make sure every little detail on that car, whether it's a body panel or it has to do something. So everything that's on these cars is not styled, is doing something aerodynamically. Otherwise, we'll save the weight and not have it. So there's no styling going on. It's designed, but it's not styled for the sake of
Would you say
style.
that is the Zenvo flavor is what you just wrapped up there? It's the Scandinavian minimalism applied to performance?
I would say, okay, so there's two Zenvos, of course. It's the Zenvo of the old, which we still carry over quite a lot of it. But let's say these cars. I mean, yes, Danish design. Huge deal. We've been inspired by classic architecture, furniture, and the whole economical thinking, where you can do with less. Of course, another big pillar is, of course, the drivetrain, and it's a V12, of course. It's the most, emotional engine configuration you can have. And I'd say, thirdly, what's deeply in Zenvo's DNA and has been from day one, it's this engagement, which is so hard to quantize. But it's not a numbers car. Zenvo has never been about numbers. We're about basically, I think the idea behind these cars, has been just to see how far can we push all parameters. How far can we, how much power can we get out of the engine while we still retain, power delivery, engine, like throttle response, how far can we push aerodynamics before you get trade-offs? How far can we push the craftsmanship? How far can we? So every parameter that makes a hypercar, we're sort of pushing it. Let's say it's an equalizer from the 80s. We just push every lever up till where it starts sounding bad. That's when you start to get trade-offs. So that's sort of what I'm envisioning, about these cars. So literally a driver's car, but with everything turned up to 11 right before the point where you start to get trade-offs. So we're not sacrificing top speed for low-end, low speed performance. We're not sacrificing downforce for mechanical grip. Although we have a lot of downforce, we still want, to be able to go, sideways, for lack of a better word, because you have to be able to play with the car, right? So,
sure.
So that's sort of, it's a sweet spot car. I guess others, you could say Gordon Murray is sort of doing the same. We've literally just, this is our approach. I sort of gravitate to, I'm used to more extreme performance as well, as from motorcycles and Koenigsegg and these things. So I feel you need at least 1,000 horsepower to get a proper acceleration.
Certainly,
He doesn't get out of bed for less than 1,000.
at this price point, you certainly do. So give us the boilerplate, the power, the weight, give us the hard numbers of the Aurora, because not everybody's familiar.
Yeah. Okay. So there's two different versions. So I'll start with the low-powered version, which is the Agile. Agile means agile.
And Zach,
it's
that's the
more
blue
track
one.
bias.
If we're doing photos, the blue one
That's
is the entry
red,
level.
It's the red.
Oh, it's the red one?
Yeah. So that's the high downforce. That is called Agile, basically. That's the one. Yeah.
Oh, how did I have
so
it backwards? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But
I don't know.
It will all make perfect sense when I explain
Okay, go on. Sorry.
the name of the other one. So Agile means agile, which it's obviously tuned for track performance. It's a road car, but it's still, let's say it's a GT3 RS in Porsche language. So it's our target weight is under 1,300 kilos, which is, what is it, 2,850, something like that, pounds. We're currently below target, but things can happen. But that is the target weight, and that's dry weight. It's got 1,450 horsepower. So from the V12 alone, it's a quad turbo V12. You have 1,250 horsepower, and the rest comes from hybrid assistance, basically. So in the Agile, we have also made our own gearbox, which has an electric motor built into it. So that's where the hybrid power comes from. And we're also using this electric motor to, for torque fill, of course. We're using it for transient, to fill in between gear changes, to smoothen them out, basically.
Like the Ferrari 296 and the Lamborghini, or the McLaren Artura does.
Do they?
Yes.
I don't think they have do they have the motor inside the gearbox?
They have the motor sandwiched in between the gearbox and the engine. It replaces the flywheel.
Right, okay. Yeah. All right, I see. Okay. So a little bit, the same principle, a little bit different execution. So our motor is actually inside the gearbox. So
that's cool.
It comes straight out of the axles. We're also using the motor gives us a lot of control for, obviously, traction, since we're throttling directly on the pedal, basically.
And then what size is the battery?
It's so funny. I actually had a look recently, and I couldn't find it. It is yet to be defined. It is yet to be defined too. So it's not absolute. But I was just looking at the spec sheet and I was pretty sure you were gonna ask me about that, and there you go. It's a plug-in hybrid. So currently we're running A1 to 3 cells. We will probably run something else for production. But it will have a range of at least 30 kilometers. This is just to get around some of the, for example, London. So you'll be able to go to London.
Right. Yeah. But still, at under 3,000 pounds curb weight, and with an electric-only range of 30 kilometers, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a very efficient use of power. The battery couldn't possibly be bigger than 7 or 8 kilowatt hour. It's got to be smaller than that, right?
Yeah. We will see. And as I say, it's work. There's also some new cell technology coming, so the weight is coming down, but the car is extremely light as a base. So and
it's your V12 as well, right? You guys Zenvo developed the V12.
Yeah, well, yes and no. We're developing it in collaboration with a company called Mahle Powertrain. So it's part of a big German company that's done. I think this would be their 8th or 9th V12 in history, and they've done Ferrari Formula One engines, etc. So they've done a lot of cool stuff. So
did you say Mahle?
It's a collaboration, but Mahle, yeah.
Like the Pistons, Mahle Pistons, MAHLE.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you Google Mahle Powertrain, they'll have their own websites. These guys are actually based in the UK. So they used to be owned by Audi back in the days, I guess. They did all the Le Mans engines for Audi back in the days. They were involved with Cosworth. They're actually right across the road from Cosworth. So if you ask anyone in the industry, they're the guys, basically.
Well, we certainly know their pistons.
But it's 100%. Yeah, if you have driven a Porsche, then you would know.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
In the Hot V quad turbos.
The Hot V.
That's
incredible.
pretty
And it
awesome.
needs
Folks,
to
we got to
be.
take one quick break for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is sponsoring the Smoking Tire podcast this week. They are the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 through 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you've got the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Prize Picks is really simple to play. Just make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And with the Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and CFB top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So Prize Picks helps get some skin in the game, make it a little more fun, right? Make it a little more interesting, and, it's a good time. Got to get in on it. And playing against the numbers is better than playing against thousands of other players. So go to prizepicks.com/tire and use code TIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/tire and use code TIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. And now back to the show.
And the reason it's a Hot V in a 90 degrees, of course, because we send the air through the car. So there wasn't any engine out there that we could just, then if we would have jeopardized the design of the car and the whole principle of using negative space, right? So,
Right.
So we had no other choice than to do it from the ground up. So since we're doing that, we have to find some sort of common sense in this, because it's a really expensive thing to do for a small manufacturer.
Sure.
So
what is the displacement of that engine?
6.6.
6.6. Yeah.
6.6 liters. Wow. Yeah. That's serious. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. So we're actually making an engine family, basically. So we're making V8s and V6s as well, based on this block.
On the architecture.
Which
cool.
Of course. Yeah. So that's how we sort of get some of our money back. We have a few customers for the V6s first and foremost, and for ourselves, we're planning a junior hypercar in a few years' time, which will be V8 powered, for example. So it's a long burn. It will take us quite a long time to make our investment back, but that's. It was just one of these things. I mean, I remember vividly the conversations. Of course, my whole life I wanted a V12. Every damn project I've been involved with is like, oh, can we have a V12? And it's always stopped on, we already have a powertrain. Let's continue with V8s or whatever we have. And it's too much money. And then, of course, now it's like, okay, let's ask the customers. What do they want? Of course, it's like, you ask 100 people, you do electric, V6, V8, V12, it was like 99.
Yeah. I'm absolutely shocked all the customers
Yeah.
want a V12. Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so this is no longer just an ego thing, and
Yeah.
everyone in the company, of course, V12, everyone wanted it. So So, and it's a last chance to do it, right? To make some history. It's probably going to be the last all new V12 ever developed. Because this is you develop from scratch today. Everything else out there is sort of old V12s that have been sort of modified, to pass emissions and everything. This is made with today's regulation in mind, and for the next 10 years at least, till 2035 will be okay. Then after that, of course, we have to run synthetic fuels in Europe, which is fine. Not sure what's happening in the US. I can only assume there will be some regulation around the synthetic fuel, as long as it's net carbon. I assume it will also happen in the US actually. So.
I'm excited for synthetic fuels. I think synthetic fuels are pretty cool, and everyone who's driven on them has told me that there's absolutely no difference when you're driving the car, which is perfect.
There is none. Yeah, it might smell a little bit different, but there is none.
Maybe we can put some scents in there. Maybe we can make it nice. Make it smell like roses or something.
Make it smell like French fries.
Sure. Yeah. So, we're also most likely making it. We haven't decided yet, but it can potentially run on the E85. Obviously, with even more power. We don't need it. It won't make the car any better, but it's an option that we might do in the future.
Well, you could probably call a guy. I know a guy who's good at E85. I think you could probably call him. He's in Engelholm. He has some expertise in the ethanol area.
You don't find it much anymore, except for in the US. All of a sudden, you find a lot of gas stations has E85 now.
Because we subsidize corn like crazy in this country. I mean, there's so many advantages to farmers to grow corn with government subsidies and tax stuff that we just as a country, we're like junkies for corn here. So wherever they grow a lot of corn,
we are the second largest exporter of corn as well in the world.
What's ahead of us?
Brazil.
Brazil. Oh.
Brazil, yeah. Oh. That's where the E85 used to come from very often. It was all like very skewed, green thinking, I guess. You would buy E85 from Brazil, put on a big oil tanker running on, sludge fuel.
Here's your clean fuel. We've burned 100,000 gallons of bunker oil to get it to you.
Like it doesn't even float. It's like mud, right? So
that's how we transport batteries for EVs across the ocean. By the way, it's doing.
It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. So I guess synthetic fuels has a lot going for it in terms of you can make it locally.
Yeah.
In LA, there's a couple of cool companies. You have Carbon Engineering. The Bill Gates, I guess he owns the majority of it. It's really cool stuff. There's all over. England has it. Iceland has it. I think every country will have some brands, with this now. So so there's plenty available basically.
Yeah.
And it's and we have the infrastructure. Like any gas station will be able to.
Yeah. Just
to have
it
it. So it's like common sense will say. We should do this, for at least our sports cars, So
yeah, I mean, there's so many cars on the road that are worth keeping on the road. The cars that are not that dirty. Certainly, classic cars and cars that are collectible and have a cultural significance, a historical significance. It's such a small. A small part of the world of transportation. You don't want to legislate the driving of those cars away. You want to find a way to keep those cars on the road, and if we can improve that, we should. And if it's a little more expensive to buy it, so be it.
Yeah, sure. I've sort of, I can foresee this whole scenario where everything will be turned on its head. You'll find you'll find a plug-in for your electric car easily available everywhere. While you might have to go to like a sports car dealership or something to find your fuel pump for synthetic fuels maybe. So it's sort of like today the EV guys are scrambling trying to find a place to plug in. And,
it'll be the opposite.
Maybe it's the opposite, which is still fine. For a hypercar, sports car, as long as there's a station every 20 miles or something, it's fine.
Yeah.
So and why not? It's probably not scalable enough to where it can take over for. I don't see daily drivers, using synthetic fuels. But no, for sure.
But if it does help keep specialty cars on the road, then okay. These are cars they're luxuries, they're toys, they're not. They're not something everybody. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got off track. Tell us about the blue car. We talked about downforce and the red car, but the blue car.
Yeah, the blue car. Is it on the screen? Yeah. So
yes, we have the blue car on the screen.
Yeah, that's called the Tour, which means touring, basically. So it's a hyper GT. So a little bit more focused on creature comforts but still, of course, extremely fast. It is the more powerful version of the two, because this comes standard with 4-wheel drive. So it's got a combined power output of 1850 horsepower, this one.
Yeah, that's necessary for road driving. We need that.
For touring.
For touring, yes, of course.
Yeah, for touring, you get
I want to see the world in 5 minutes.
Well, here's your car for you, sir. So it's so easy to be misunderstood with these numbers, of course. But we can do a lot more. It's just this is where we landed. Making it as drivable, like the sweet spot package. Basically, this is where we landed. So sure, we can do 2.5. That's not the point. So we landed here to have the best drivable car, basically. So what this one has is of course electric motors on the front with torque vectoring. So you'll have a quicker accelerating car. It will still be capable on track, but it's of course quite a lot heavier. It's today around 1450 kilos. So so it's quite a bit more weight and a bigger battery, basically. So.
Sure.
So 3,200 pounds.
3,200 pounds. Still very, still basically the weight of like a 911 Carrera T. Mm-hmm. Like it's like a base 911 weight.
Is the Artura weigh?
They are
Artura is
very light.
33 and change. The Artura feels very light, but that's not for all-wheel drive. That's a rear drive package only. Right, Corvette E-Ray is like 3,800 pounds, and that's got all-wheel. That's the all-wheel drive. So this has two motors in the front, right, and then one in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's got basically the same configuration. So different gearing, of course. Different. I would say mapping of the chassis, but it's the same monocoque, it's the same tub, and it's the same chassis components, but it's tuned differently. So it feels different, and it of course looks quite a bit different. And so the reason why we did this too is I think we just came to the conclusion that we couldn't have one car that could please everybody, basically. So without compromising. So we sort of
that's a lesson of Koenigsegg right there, isn't it?
It might be, yeah. I think that's very much customer driven. So if you look even at Czinger, that has two versions of the 21C, right? And it's two different customers. It's the reason we brought out the Regera in Koenigsegg, because it was more of a Grand Tourer sort of customer, more of an everyday driver. Right. So this one also has the added luxury of luggage space, which the Agile does not have.
Oh, where does the luggage go?
It goes on this right in front of the rear wheels. You have to open up the engine bay, and there's like
the side pod trunks. I remember that. Yeah, someone showed me that at the Quail. It was cool. It's like it's almost like a McLaren F1, but it's a top load rather than a side load.
Yeah. So we're using
opens.
that space. Yeah, the suitcases looks a bit funny, but that's the trade-off. You'll be okay for like a 3-4 day road trip, basically for two people. So that's of course a big one. Whilst the Agile, we are working on getting maybe a tiny little compartment in the front. But you're looking at somewhere to store your helmet and some stuff realistically. So. Yeah. So that's sort of the difference. Of course, the top speed of the Tour is it's a low drag car. It's got taller gearing, so we're limiting it to 420 kph due to tires. It will do a little bit more if during special circumstances. If Michelin is approving it, so yeah, around 450 kph it will do, like, naturally before it runs out of steam, which it's not the fastest, but it's very important.
You have, very important that you can go 250 miles an hour.
In this market, it kind of is.
Well, you got to brag, right? If you're going to spend that much money, you need to be able to brag about stuff, and so that's one of those things that people aren't going to really do, but they need to brag about.
For me, it's about sort of just having a cake and eat it too. Like, sort of see how far you can. That's what hypercars should be. You should push the boundaries. Whether you drive in 250 or not. It's. I think the beauty is to have a car that can do 250. That is also fantastic fun in 60. I think that's the impressive part for me. Like, technologically, how can you make one car that can do both these things, right? So I think that's where the whole hypercar ethos comes in. That's why, that's what you can do in a hypercar field.
That's where all the electric hypercars kind of fall apart. I mean, I drove the Nevera, and I've said this a million times, and it's incredible. You can run an 8-second quarter mile on the street just whenever you want. That's an amazing feat, and all those records that they broke, acceleration records. I mean, that's amazing. And Mate is a genius, and all the things that they're doing over there are amazing. But when you're driving that car at 30 or 50 miles an hour, plain and simple, it's not exciting at all. It's well made and it's good looking, but it's not exciting unless you're going a zillion miles an hour. It might as well be a Tesla or something if you're just cruising along.
Yeah, I feel it needs to be. Even going 30. If it's not fun going slow, then the fast stuff doesn't really matter. That's just like an added bonus that it can do 250 miles an hour. That's like an added bonus of sort of pushing the boundaries. But it better well be fun in the canyons, right? Because that's where you'll drive the car most of the time on a Sunday morning or something like that. So if that's not fun, then it's no longer a sports car for me. So so I guess that's philosophically where we are very different. We set out to do a driver's car, basically. That's where the numbers is a side effect of just doing the best we can. So we never set out.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Okay. Well,
I was just saying, what do you think the global market is for a car like this? What is your actual customer base? You're from a dealer background, so how many people in the world can afford this and are looking for something like this?
A lot of people can afford it, but then of course not. You have to be pretty passionate about cars to spend this sort of money, of course. I mean, we're limiting them to 50 of each, which is very low volume. So, and the reason we're doing it is, of course, resale value and just we need to sell out. This is a halo car for us, so we need to have more customers than we have cars. So far, I mean, the uptake is roughly 50% US. A lot of them is going to California. It would seem California and Texas, two big markets, and then Florida, I guess.
That's not surprising. That's where a lot of the big dollar cars end up.
Yeah, we've done well in Germany, which I didn't expect, because it's a good market, but it's very hard to break into. They really want to see proof for everything. They know engineering, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's really resonated well with the German market. But yeah, there's cars everywhere. I mean, who could be the customer? There's thousands, but okay, who's our customer? Well, that's probably a guy or a girl that cares more about the product than the brand, right? We don't have the luxury buyer. We have the product buyer, if you know. So our customers is sort of more into the product. They are really into engineering. They're proper car guys. Of course, I think, without saying anything negative, I think, for example, Bugatti has sort of this brand, which is sort of also luxury, right? It's it can attract buyers who's not really like through and through engineering car guys.
Yeah.
Maybe Pagani as well has that sort of luxury flair. I would say Koenigsegg in the old days definitely also had these really engineering knowledgeable, customers. So that those are our customers. So we sort of have more customers in that camp than the brand camp, to put it that way. They will come later. Let's face it, we're not a brand, and you're also not paying for the brand tax in a way. We are competing against cars that are $1 million more.
Yeah.
Right. That we can, yeah. So, and that's literally just down to brand.
Yeah, I mean Bugatti's got 100-year head start, so although they took a little break, but they've got a long history.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So you understand why that can be like that.
It's a different thing as well. It's of course with the Volkswagen background and everything. It's then we come back to this thing about trust that I mentioned earlier, and whereas Zenvo or probably let's say Rimac as well, probably like you have more of an early adopter type. So we have a lot of people from the tech industry who's sort of entrepreneurs. So that's our customer base.
Where can I buy one? I mean, I don't have the money, but where does one buy one?
Yeah, well, there is a dealer opening up in your city very soon.
Okay.
There will be a press release coming out in, I would say, 3-4 weeks from now.
Okay.
For example, so there will be in LA. There is dealers coming in like mid-America, like Salt Lake City. We have Naples Motorsports in Florida, for example. So we actually don't want to have too many dealers, but we want dealers who can really look after you, basically. So we're in all the hot spots, and they really have to look after customers in terms of flying technicians, logistics solutions, and things like that. So for the whole of North America, we're not going to have more than 5 dealers. So but you'll be well looked after in Los Angeles. Will be easy for you.
Cool. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard anything about a dealer network, and so I was genuinely
there is, yeah. There is, yeah. We just haven't published. We just haven't published all of them yet, but there's coming now. Between now and Christmas, we'll start, publish all the dealers. And
little exclusive here for your boys at the Smoking Tire, maybe.
Yeah, I can definitely do something. So the cars are coming to. Well, when are we going to be in? I might, correct me if I'm wrong, team, but think towards end of November and whole of December, the cars will be in Los Angeles area doing various activities. So
can I have a little go?
So
can I try one?
The show cars will be tricky. I would have to push you. These are show cars. So
I understand. When you have a car that is a driver, I would love to have a quick go if that's on the table.
I think it is on the table.
Cool.
And I think you'd enjoy even the TSRS and TSR GT cars actually. So
I'd like to try one of those too. Yeah, that's the evolution of the original car that's now sort of in its much more aggressive form.
Yeah, they're great fun. They're I mean, really, I guess undervalued in a way. So I don't think people realize how much fun they are. So they're
They're nuts. I saw them at the Quail. They're loud. They're really loud. They're really loud.
Correct. Yeah. I think you would have, we were there at the Hypercar Invitational last year doing some, we were, on one of the loud Laguna Seca days. So, So I think currently there's only one of them in the US, and that's this YouTuber, Shmi150 has his car over in the US. And then I think we've sold a couple to Texas, so all places. So there's a couple of cars going over there, basically. But yeah,
also,
I guess
crazy
you would have
numbers
to come to
on those
Denmark.
cars.
Yeah,
I'll have to come to Denmark.
Pretty
That's okay.
number.
I like Denmark. Denmark is great. I'll come over there. No problem.
Copenhagen is fantastic for like fantastic food scene, so it's
all right, cool.
So
well, this is I'm holding you to that. I will go to Denmark. I will drive one of these, and I will. When you have the other car, I'll do a double header out of it. That's going to be the move, I think.
Yeah. Let's just stay in touch about that. So, but this can be organized easily for sure.
We have one good relevant question from our Patreon for Jens. If you have just a couple minutes before we let you go, we appreciate your time, and I know you're busy. Zach, can you move the cursor because I can't read the thing? That keeps happening. Retrofit says, how do we educate people who are mad about classic cars and supercars that they have zero appreciable negative impact on the environment, and how do we turn the tide back? Well, that sentence is weird. I think the first part of it is really the question. For folks who we have environmentalists, and I would actually consider myself one in many ways, that really don't really understand how small of an impact supercars, hypercars, and classic cars have in the air quality and stuff like that. What can we do to educate those people that these enthusiast cars could maybe be exempted from certain regulations that everyday cars should probably be subject to?
Just the car is just such an easy product politically, right? It's such an emotional product. It's so easy to target it for politicians. So I don't know. I don't know. Our community is tiny, in the world, like the world of supercars, hypercars. It's just a tiny little community in the world. A very nice community, but I mean, what can you do? People like you need to educate the world.
I try. I run up against folks who I think are probably well-meaning, who say things like, "I don't think there should be 2 tiers of regulation for cars. I'm against multiple tiers of regulation. I think we should have regulation for everybody, and people who can afford nice cars shouldn't be exempted from regulations." And I do understand that point, because a lot of the people who can afford these cars are already wealthy and already enjoy nice lives, and they don't need their lives to be made easier. But I just think in terms of actual effective regulation of what will improve our air quality, what will improve our water quality, what will improve our quality of life. I personally think that in the volumes that you guys build cars at Zenvo, or even the volumes that they build sports cars at Ferrari or Lotus, it's such a small percentage.
It's nothing. I mean, it is very good for the environment to take care of stuff, right? Like to buy a hypercar, it's going to be around 100 years from now. The car will still be around and appreciated somewhere. So, and I think the same goes
That's
for
the
all
opposite of a
enthusiast
disposable
cars.
daily driver car. Yeah.
That's what I mean. I mean, people buy clothes from China that they wear 5 times and throw away. It's horrible for the environment. So it's, I don't know. It's well, someone with a voice needs to educate. I don't think people like me can educate people much, because I'm always going to be preaching to the choir in a way. So I don't have the outreach, and I don't think anyone in my industry has, because our outreach is sort of car fanatics.
Right.
So they all agree with us.
Yeah, and ours is too, to a certain extent. But I agree with you that a car that will be kept in good running order fundamentally forever, as opposed to a quote clean car that may end up in a landfill in 12 or 15 years. An EV whose battery might end up in a junkyard in 10 or 15 years. That's much dirtier than a gasoline-powered supercar that drives 2,000 miles a year for 100 years.
Yeah, it's about life cycle as opposed to, what's coming out of the tailpipe today, right? So just, what is the life cycle of a Ferrari? It's probably 80 years more.
Yeah. The percentage of Ferraris or 911s or something still on the road today of all the ones ever built is astronomically high. Yeah.
Surely that must be very good for the environment. Just take care of stuff. And of course, and I would say I'm pretty convinced in the future, you don't even have to answer for it because you'll be able to run your 911 on synthetic fuels.
Right.
So there is really not that many arguments left, right?
I'd like to get some synthetic fuel. I know my friend Harry Metcalf he's in the UK, but he's getting drums of the stuff delivered to his house. I don't know if that's possible in Los Angeles yet, but do you have to do anything to the car? Do you have to change anything in the car? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, it depends on the fuel. So of course if you read the marketing blurb, it says no, you should just fill it and go. I think there's some fuels is pretty close to the truth. I can actually figure out some of them. Some of them, obviously, you need remapping and this and that, and you don't know the long-term effects yet. How abrasive it can be on the metals, etc. But there's really no reason. It's not like E85. It doesn't eat away the metals. So it should be fine. But I'm gonna make some calls.
I'm gonna try and get a drum of the stuff and see and run it in an old car and see what happens.
Give your friend Metcalf a call in about 2 years from now, and see.
See how his Countach is holding up. Yeah.
I think I know which fuel he's running. So it's this. I think I know which one it is, and I think that is very mild. But I'm not sure if it's considered to be a net carbon fuel yet. So you won't be able to get away. But this is still 5-10 years away from being perfected, right? Whilst the fuel works, I don't think we can say it's net carbon emissions yet.
Harry's using a Sustain Classic fuel.
Made by Coriton.
That's right.
Made by Coriton. Contains 80% renewable content. Okay? It's 98 Ron grade, equivalent to US 94 octane. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I can get that in America, but we'll see.
There's going to be some alternatives in America for sure. But that stuff is not. You can't argue it's as green as batteries probably, but it's at least a huge step in the right direction.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, Jens, this has been very interesting. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I really want to come try the cars. So I have to find a way to do that. Maybe I'll convince the magazine to send me over there for something. That's the theme of the next issue is air. Maybe that'll stand for air travel to Denmark.
Well, they have the buttresses where the air passes through the car.
Right.
That sounds about right.
Right.
It's an easy-ish flight. It's direct flight to Copenhagen for you.
No,
it's not that bad.
It's just, no problem at all. Yeah, and I'll stop in Portugal and have some wine with you, I think. Is the move.
I'll be in Denmark when you come there. But we can do, actually, it depends on when you come. If you come during winter, then I think we're way better off actually doing some drives in Spain or Portugal. So,
I don't need to come to Scandinavia in winter. I think we can work around.
Not in January.
The tourists won't be there, but at the same time, the 2,000 horsepower car may struggle for traction.
It's at best, it's literally almost impossible to do any test drives for 2-3 months of the year.
No snow tire fitments for these Zenvo cars.
We do, but it's still, it's still not the best experience, I guess.
It's probably hairy.
Not very confidence inspiring.
We'll check out all this stuff at zenvoautomotive.com. We'll put the link in the video description. You can learn about these amazing cars. I saw them in person at the Quail. They are stunning, and they are put together very well. The carbon work is gorgeous, and all the engineering is really on display. And that gauge cluster, I'm obsessed with the gauge cluster of this car because it is just the most. It's the opposite of the LCD screen laziness that we're all getting a little too used to. It's really fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Jens. We very much appreciate it, and I'll hope to see you soon.
Likewise. Hope to see you soon too. I'll give you a shout when I'm in LA. Yeah.
For sure. Please come visit us in person next time. Thank you for listening, everybody. We appreciate you all, and we will see you next week.